The year was 1963. The Cold War cast long, fearful shadows across the world. The wind blew harshly across the desert surrounding Area 61, sweeping sand against the chain-link fences and barbed wire that encircled the facility, a secretive military installation near the outskirts of Dredford that was officially nothing more than a series of abandoned research bunkers. In the dim dusk light, the grey, low-slung buildings of the compound seemed almost lifeless, buried in the silence that permeated the place. But inside, a secret hum of activity betrayed the facility's true purpose. Sergeant Thomas Galloway had been stationed here only 2 months, but he had learned early on that there were questions you simply didn't ask. Even in the military, where unusual projects were par for the course, Area 61 was a different breed. Rumors swirled about its experiments, tales whispered between soldiers about researchers testing the limits of fear, about portals to other planes of existence, and even sightings of inhuman shapes skulking in the shadows. Galloway didn't believe most of it, of course, but the strangeness was hard to ignore. It was during a late-night briefing in a sterile, fluorescent-lit room that Galloway received the offer. Colonel Pierce, a man whose demeanor matched the facility's soulless walls, was vague as he outlined the opportunity.
You're being given the chance to serve your country in a unique way, Sergeant, and this experiment will allow us to advance our understanding of human resilience, of what the human mind and body can endure. Only the bravest soldiers can handle what we're about to test. Do you understand?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Galloway didn't hesitate. He was tough, level-headed, and willing to serve. This was just another mission. But as he signed the classified paperwork, a prickle of unease settled in his stomach. Days later, they took Galloway deep into the heart of the facility, to a part of Area 61 he hadn't known existed. The corridors were colder here, and the lighting was dim, flickering sporadically. They stopped outside a heavy reinforced door with strange symbols etched into the metal. Beyond it, the room was lined with complicated machinery, glass tubes filled with dark, viscous fluids, and strange sensors that hummed softly. In the center of the room was a single metal chair with thick restraints on the arms and legs. Pierce and 2 scientists flanked Galloway as he took his seat, securing him into place. He could feel a chill radiating from the cold metal, seeping through his uniform and into his bones. Pierce gave him a steady look.
What you're about to experience is beyond anything you've been trained for. We've acquired a specimen, one we believe will unlock new doors in human biology. This is uncharted territory, Sergeant.
Before Galloway could respond, one of the scientists approached, carrying a glass vial filled with a substance so dark it seemed to absorb the light around it. It looked almost like blood, but thicker, darker, with an unnatural shimmer that was unsettling. They called it the basilisk serum. A scientist in a white lab coat inserted a syringe into the vial, drawing up a precise amount of the dark fluid before moving to Galloway's side. The needle gleamed under the dim light as the serum was injected into his arm. The liquid felt like ice, and as it seeped into his veins, Galloway shivered violently. At first, nothing happened. The researchers around him monitored his vitals, whispering to each other as Galloway sat in silence. But then he felt it, a slow, creeping cold that started in his chest and spread outward, winding through his limbs like frigid tendrils. His vision blurred, the world around him tilting and shifting, as though the light itself were bending.
Don't feel right.
Fear is part of the response we're studying. Embrace it.
Galloway's heartbeat thundered in his chest as the chill intensified, moving deeper, settling in the very core of his being. And with it came a strange, insidious whispering in his mind, as if 1,000 voices were muttering in some forgotten language. It was ancient and cold, a sound that filled him with an inexplicable dread. In that moment, he understood. This wasn't just a chemical serum, some enhanced adrenaline cocktail or stimulant. There was something alive in it, something that wanted him. The cold intensified and darkness began to pool at the edges of his vision, as if shadows were creeping in, gnawing away at the room's dim light. Galloway gasped, his skin prickling, his heart racing faster. He tried to move, but his limbs felt numb and heavy. Then he felt it, a slow transformation from within. His skin began to pale, almost translucent, and his heartbeat, which had been racing moments before, now slowed to a sluggish crawl. He could feel the shadows in the room differently, no longer as mere patches of darkness, but as extensions of himself, an awareness growing that was not his own. He could see them, the shadows, moving in waves, sliding up the walls, filling the corners of the room with a restless, predatory presence.
Subject's vitals stabilizing, but the body temperature dropping to critical levels.
Pierce watched, unblinking as Galloway's breathing grew shallow, his eyes unfocused. He was no longer merely cold. He was empty, hollow, as if the shadows themselves had replaced his blood, filling him with a void that made him crave something he couldn't name. Galloway's hands twitched, but he could barely feel them. Instead, he felt a yearning, a hunger that tore at him from the inside, clawing for release. The shadows, the cold, the darkness, they were inside him now, filling every nerve, every thought. The lights in the room flickered again, dimming as the shadows thickened. In the corner, the darkness took on a life of its own, growing denser, more solid. And then he heard it, a guttural whisper from within himself, speaking in a voice that was both his and not his.
Feed.
He didn't know what it meant, but his body reacted instinctively, tugging against the restraints. His heart had slowed to a crawl, and yet his senses felt sharper, attuned to the faintest sounds, the heartbeat of each person in the room, the quiet rustle of their movements, the scent of fear thickening in the air. The scientists stepped back, visibly unnerved. Pierce's face, however, remained impassive.
Fascinating.
Pierce murmured, scribbling notes as Galloway's transformation continued. He was no longer a man. His face seemed to blur in the dim light, his eyes turning black as shadows pooled within them. The cold radiating from him intensified, and when he looked down, he saw his own hands starting to dissolve, fingers blurring as if they were becoming smoke. Galloway didn't scream. There was nothing left in him to scream with. The darkness that had claimed him was now his own skin, his own blood, a yawning, insatiable emptiness. The scientists moved to restrain him further, but he barely felt their touch, barely saw their horrified expressions as he leaned forward and touched one of them. The man collapsed instantly, his face frozen in terror as if he'd looked into the abyss itself. The other scientists backed away, but there was nowhere to run. The room was filled with an unearthly darkness, a cold that seeped into the walls, into the metal and concrete, turning everything silent, still. He saw Pierce's eyes flicker with fear for the first time as the colonel realized what he'd unleashed. And as the lights failed one by one, leaving the facility cloaked in absolute darkness, Galloway, the shadow that had once been a soldier, smiled with a hunger that could never be sated.